When people talk about the Clone Wars, they usually picture massive armies of identical soldiers marching into battle. Thousands of clone troopers, all wearing the same armor, all following the same orders. But the truth is, not every clone was the same. Hidden within the Grand Army of the Republic was a small group of soldiers that were completely different from the rest. They were faster, smarter, more dangerous, and unlike most clones, they were actually encouraged to think for themselves. These soldiers were known as ARC troopers. ARC stands for Advanced Recon Commando, and in many ways, they were the closest thing the Republic had to true special forces. While standard clone troopers were trained to fight as part of a massive military machine, ARC troopers were trained for something very different. They were trained to operate independently, to improvise, to adapt when everything went wrong, and that made them some of the most feared soldiers in the entire galaxy. Their training was far more intense than that of regular clones. In fact, the original ARC troopers were personally trained by the bounty hunter whose DNA the entire clone army was based on, Jango Fett. This meant they inherited not only his combat skills but also his mindset. They weren't just soldiers, they were hunters. ARC troopers were trained to handle missions that normal clone units simply couldn't survive. Deep reconnaissance behind enemy lines, high risk sabotage missions, assassinations, infiltration. If the Republic needed something done that seemed nearly impossible, ARC troopers were usually the ones sent in. But what really made them unique wasn't just their skill in combat, it was their independence. Most clones were raised and conditioned to follow orders without hesitation. ARC troopers were different. They were allowed, sometimes even expected, to question commands if the situation demanded it. They could make their own tactical decisions on the battlefield. And because of that freedom, many ARC troopers developed stronger personalities than the average clone soldier. They became leaders, strategists, warriors who didn't just follow the plan, they created new ones when the plan failed. Some of the most famous clones in the entire war were ARC troopers, soldiers like ARC Trooper 5s, whose bravery and intelligence eventually led him to uncover one of the darkest secrets of the entire war. Or Echo, a clone whose survival and transformation would eventually make him one of the most unique soldiers of the Republic ever produced. And then there was ARC Trooper Jesse, a loyal soldier who fought through some of the most brutal battles of the Clone Wars. They weren't just elite fighters, they were symbols of what clones could become when they were allowed to grow beyond their programming. Even the Jedi trusted ARC troopers more than most other soldiers. Jedi generals often relied on them to lead dangerous missions or command other clone units in critical situations. Because ARC troopers didn't just follow orders blindly, they understood strategy, they understood battlefield psychology, and most importantly, they understood how to win. But like every other clone in the Republic Army, ARC troopers were still trapped inside a system they didn't truly control. No matter how skilled they were, no matter how independent they become, they were still bound by the same hidden command that every clone carried inside them, Order 66, a single command issued by Darth Sidious that would instantly turn the Republic's greatest soldiers against the Jedi they had fought beside for years. It didn't matter how loyal an ARC trooper was, it didn't matter how much respect they had for their Jedi commanders. When the order came, they had no choice. And that's part of what makes their story so tragic. Because ARC troopers represented the very best of the clone army. They were brave, they were intelligent, they were leaders. But in the end, they were still pawns in a war that had been manipulated from the very beginning. The galaxy remembers the Jedi as legendary warriors, but the truth is, much of the fighting in the Clone Wars was carried out by soldiers like the ARC troopers. Elite clones who risked everything on missions no one else could survive. And whether they realized it or not, they were some of the most dangerous warriors the Republic ever created. If you enjoyed this breakdown of the Clone Wars' most elite soldiers, make sure to subscribe, because there are a lot more hidden stories in Star Wars that deserve to be told.